Imagine waking up to the roar of bulldozers ripping through your front yard, obliterating generations of family farmland to make way for a highway just steps from your doorstep. The HOA president smirks as your home's value collapses overnight. But what these power-hungry board members didn't anticipate was that family ties run deeper than their polished bylaws. Would you risk everything to protect what's rightfully yours? William Carter stood on his porch, gazing out over the 120 acres of farmland that had been in his family for 4 generations. At 58, the lines etched around his eyes spoke of early mornings, late harvests, and a lifetime of hard work. This wasn't just land. It was his heritage, his retirement, and the legacy he'd pass to his children. The farm had thrived under his care, as it had under his fathers and grandfathers before him. The century-old oak trees lining the driveway had witnessed Carter weddings, births, and the turning of seasons. His late wife, Elizabeth, had planted the rose garden near the front gate, pink roses that matched her gentle spirit. Every inch of this property held memories too precious to price. William was a pillar in Willow Creek County. Neighbors respected his quiet wisdom and integrity. When newcomers arrived, he was often the first to greet them with a basket of fresh vegetables and a warm handshake. His word was his bond, a rare quality in modern times. But everything changed 3 months ago when Margaret Langley became president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. With her tailored suits and corporate polish, she seemed out of place in their rural community. Her slick pitches about property value enhancement and community modernization swayed many residents eager to boost their home values. William noticed oddities, secretive board meetings he wasn't invited to, surveyors working at dawn, and zoning hearings scheduled when most folks were at work. Something felt off, but he couldn't pinpoint it. Just routine updates to community guidelines, Margaret had assured everyone at the last meeting, her smile never quite sincere. But the way she eyed William's property left him uneasy. Little did he know, a storm was brewing that would threaten everything he cherished, or that his estranged brother, Robert, would become his greatest ally in the fight ahead. The monthly HOA meeting was packed that May evening. William slipped into a back row seat, nodding to neighbors Jim and Clara Thompson. Margaret Langley stood at the podium, her navy blazer a sharp contrast to the community center's drab walls. "Next up, our Community Progress Initiative," she announced, clicking through a PowerPoint filled with jargon-heavy slides about traffic optimization and commercial integration. William squinted at the dense diagrams. When the Q&A opened, he raised his hand. "Ms. Langley, some of these roads seem to cut through private properties. Can you clarify whose land is affected?" Margaret's smile tightened. "All development is within HOA common areas and approved easements, Mr. Carter." These plans were detailed in the April newsletter appendix for those who reviewed it. When William pressed further, she pivoted to another question. After the meeting, William cornered board member Frank Larson, a longtime friend. "Frank, this road project doesn't add up. Can I see the full plans?" Frank shifted uncomfortably. "Margaret controls all documentation now. New efficiency protocols. Look, William, just let it go. Big players are involved." The next morning, William enlisted Jim Thompson to comb through old meeting minutes. They uncovered a quiet change to voting rules 3 months prior, lowering the approval threshold for developments from 75% to a simple majority. "This isn't right," Jim muttered. Most folks didn't even notice. 3 days later, Williams spotted surveyors placing markers along his property's front edge. "You're 15 feet onto my land," he told the crew foreman, pointing to his boundary line. The foreman shrugged. "We're working off official HOA maps, sir. Take it up with them." Every attempt to get answers hit a wall: unanswered emails, missing zoning applications, and unavailable county records. The breakthrough came from Tom Reynolds, an old friend at City Hall. "William, they fast-tracked a highway through the north end of Willow Creek. It slices right through your front yard," Tom whispered over the phone. "The paperwork claims it's HOA land, not yours." Something's fishy. Driving home, William's heart raced as the setting sun cast shadows over his fields. He pictured his oak trees bulldozed, Elizabeth's roses buried under asphalt, his porch facing a roaring highway. At home, he found an HOA notice slipped under his door, declaring a boundary adjustment that reassigned 2 acres of his land to the HOA, approved 3 months earlier. The storm had hit, and William was in its path. The emergency HOA meeting that Tuesday was standing room only. Word of the highway had spread, and worried homeowners filled the community center. William had spent the prior day digging into Margaret Langley's past, uncovering a bombshell. Before moving to Willow Creek, she'd been a consultant for Bright Future Developments, the company now contracted to build a shopping complex the highway would serve. Margaret opened the meeting, her poise unshaken. Behind her, a rendering displayed the Willow Creek Commercial Corridor, a 4-lane highway carving through William's front yard. "This corridor will modernize our community," she declared, rattling off projections of 400% commercial visibility and enhanced property values. Her jargon seemed designed to obscure rather than inform. When questions opened, William stood. "County records show I've owned this land since 1985. That highway cuts through my property. I never sold or transferred it to the HOA." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Carter, the January boundary adjustment corrected an error in your deed, identifying that land as part of the community's 1970s easement. The records are clear. An error unnoticed for 40 years, conveniently fixed right after you took over?" William shot back. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Margaret's tone chilled. "The board acted legally. Permits are secured, contracts signed. Construction starts next week." William played his first card, holding up a folder. "I've reviewed every HOA covenant since the 1970s. There's no rule allowing the HOA to redraw property lines without owner consent." Clara Thompson spoke up. "Margaret, we didn't vote to take William's land." "That's wrong." The small victory of neighbors questioning the plan bolstered William. Margaret dismissed them. "Progress isn't sentimental, Mr. Carter. The board voted for the updated bylaws. When Jim Thompson challenged the secretive amendments, Margaret had security escort him out for disruption, adjourning the meeting amid protests. Back home, William pored over Margaret's documents. The January adjustment was buried in a 173-page HOA file dump most residents ignored. The surveyor's signature looked off, and the environmental report skipped critical concerns: protected wetlands on his property's north corner, a well at risk of contamination, and noise pollution that would ruin his home. A Freedom of Information request revealed Margaret had bought 3 commercial lots near the shopping complex through a shell company, ML Ventures, days after becoming president. Valued at $400,000 each, they'd soar to $3 million post-highway. Her undisclosed financial stake was blatant. When William emailed the board demanding an emergency meeting, he received a cease and desist letter from the HOA's attorney, threatening legal action and reaffirming the construction timeline. Outmatched by deep-pocketed interests, William needed reinforcements. He'd planned a fishing trip with old high school buddies, a decades-long tradition. With the HOA crisis looming, he nearly canceled, but Jim insisted. "Clear your head, William. We'll strategize when you're back." Reluctantly, William drove to Lake Harrison, 3 hours north. The weekend offered brief respite, no cell service, just the calm of casting lines at dawn. But peace shattered Sunday when he returned home. The oak trees were stumps. Elizabeth's rose garden was obliterated, pink petals buried under dirt. Construction equipment scarred his front field. William sat in his truck, rage and grief overwhelming him. Through tears, he spotted a single pink rose defying the destruction. Trembling, he rescued it, a small victory amid loss. Construction crews worked despite it being Sunday. William confronted the foreman. "Who authorized this before permits were finalized?" The foreman claimed Margaret provided approvals Friday, saying permissions were expedited. "You've destroyed wetlands," William argued. "The environmental assessment isn't done." The foreman shrugged. "Not my call." Inside, William found his water line cut, supposedly an accident due to mismarked utility maps. His livestock had no water, with repairs delayed. Neighbors left voicemails of support, and local reporter Lisa Harper wanted to cover the story. Inspired, William called Lisa, arranging for her to document the devastation. This media exposure would prove pivotal. After hours of debate, William made a call he'd avoided for 5 years. "Robert, it's William. I wouldn't call if it wasn't critical. I need you." Silence hung between the brothers, estranged since their father's funeral over a business dispute. Robert had built a career in state government, vanishing from William's life. Their father's dying wish for reconciliation had gone unfulfilled until now. "What's happened?" Robert asked, cautious but concerned. William's voice cracked as he described the destruction. "They're tearing it apart, Rob. Everything Dad and Grandpa built. Elizabeth's garden, the oaks." "Send me pictures," Robert said. "Everything you have. I'll be there tomorrow." Robert Carter's state-issued SUV pulled into William's driveway at 8:17 Monday. The brothers shared an awkward embrace, 5 years of silence broken by the sight of their ravaged family land. Seeing it in person, Robert shook his head, composure cracking. They walked the property, William pointing out moved boundary markers. Robert took photos, his trained eye catching discrepancies. "You said the HOA president is Margaret Langley?" Robert asked. "You know her?" "Not personally, but her name came up in a shady Riverside County project last year." "Nothing stuck." Robert paused. "William, I haven't told you, I'm not just with the State Environmental Office. For 3 years, I've served on the State Land Commission." William froze. The commission held authority over major developments. "You didn't tell me because we weren't speaking," Robert admitted. "But this changes everything." For hours, the brothers analyzed William's documents. Robert identified violations, fraudulent permits, falsified environmental data, unnotified boundary changes. "This survey's fake," Robert said, pointing to the January adjustment. "Elevation markers don't match USGS data, and the wetlands analysis is missing." A knock interrupted them. Jim Thompson arrived with neighbors. "William, they're moving in heavy equipment. Full roadwork starts tomorrow." Noticing Robert, Jim asked, "Who's this?" "My brother," William said. "He's fighting with us." Robert outlined a plan. "I'm filing for emergency proceedings with the commission. We can get a stop work order by tomorrow." "William, document everything, videos, photos, neighbor statements." With Robert's guidance, William and neighbors recorded equipment positions, permit postings, and resident testimonies. A surveyor friend of Robert's confirmed the HOA's survey was deliberately falsified. By afternoon, Robert submitted emergency paperwork, triggering a 24-hour construction freeze. When William informed the site manager, the man made a frantic call. 30 minutes later, Margaret's black Mercedes screeched up. She stormed toward William. "What do you think you're doing? Do you know how much delays cost?" William stood firm. "You're trespassing on my property." Margaret jabbed a finger. "This project's happening. I've got investments riding on it. The board will hold you liable." Unbeknownst to her, William's security camera recorded her admission of personal investments, key evidence. "You've messed with the wrong family," William said. Robert stepped forward, flashing his State Land Commission badge. "Check who you're threatening." Margaret's face paled. She sped off, tires spinning. Robert's phone rang. A commission contact confirmed the stop work order was approved, with officers en route. The bulldozers fell silent, a major victory. But the brothers knew Margaret wouldn't back down. Social media buzzed with neighbors' photos of the destruction, and #SaveCarterFarm trended locally. News vans arrived, and a leaked construction simulation showed the highway feet from William's porch, a stark symbol of overreach. At dawn, state inspectors surveyed Williams' wetlands and soil, the stop work order sparking a permit review. Roland Pierce, a respected surveyor, confirmed the HOA's documents were professionally fraudulent, manipulating data and ignoring historical markers. Then, board member Helen Winters called William, shaken. "Check your email. Margaret accidentally copied me on developer emails." The chain revealed Margaret's shell company, ML Ventures, bought 3 lots at a discount, with plans to resell at a premium post-highway. Messages also detailed kickbacks for supportive board members. "I didn't take money," Helen insisted. "I thought it was for property values." By noon, William hosted a community meeting in his barn. 60 neighbors brought food in solidarity. Robert presented the evidence: fake surveys, environmental violations, conflicts of interest, and bribery emails. "This isn't just about William's farm," he said. "It's corruption affecting every homeowner." Outrage grew as residents realized they'd been deceived. Lisa Harper's news crew arrived, and neighbors like Jim Thompson gave interviews. "I voted for this thinking it was common land," Jim said. "Not stealing Williams' property." The coverage made it harder for corrupt officials to hide. Margaret tried to counter. Robert received a text offering a mutually beneficial meeting. Suspecting a bribe, he wore a wire approved by the Ethics Commission. At a coffee shop, Margaret offered $50,000 for a consulting role to cut red tape. "No one needs to know," she said. "Are you bribing me to ignore violations?" Robert asked, securing her intent on tape. Her nervous laugh betrayed her. The recording became a cornerstone of the investigation. When construction crews defied the stop order, claiming verbal clearance, William and neighbors blocked the bulldozers. "You'll have to remove us," he declared. Cell phones captured the standoff. Police arrived, not to arrest William, but to enforce the stop order. "All equipment must leave," Officer Daniels announced. The retreat, filmed and shared online, was a triumph. That evening, Robert learned the commission scheduled an emergency hearing. Victory seemed possible, but Margaret called an emergency HOA meeting that night, desperate to save her plan. The Willow Creek Community Center overflowed. Margaret tried to control the narrative, but board member Frank Larson interrupted. "We must address misconduct allegations." Margaret snapped, "Those rumors aren't on the agenda." Robert stood, placing a folder on the table. "I'm Robert Carter, State Land Commission Deputy Director. This evidence makes them the agenda." He detailed the fraud, violations, and bribery attempt. "The commission has suspended permits, and the state attorney's office is investigating mail fraud, wire fraud, and corruption." Margaret's facade crumbled. "This is biased, his brother's land." The commission's unanimous decision was based on independent analysis, Robert countered. Helen Winters confessed. Margaret hid her lot ownership and William's land grab. Other board members distanced themselves. Residents demanded answers. Jim Thompson called for a no-confidence vote in Margaret per HOA bylaws. Nearly every hand rose, ousting her in a visual rebuke of corruption. "You can't do this," Margaret protested. William stood. "Page 37 of your bylaws allows emergency removal for cause." As Margaret fled, sheriff's deputies waited to question her. The meeting continued under Jim's interim leadership. Residents apologized to William, and Frank Harmon, an elderly neighbor, choked up. "Your dad helped us through tough times. I'm ashamed we almost let this happen." The community voted to remove Margaret's allies, review past HOA decisions, and mandate conflict of interest disclosures. County Examiner Diane Foster revealed Margaret never lived in Willow Creek, invalidating her presidency. Judge Henry Wallace, a resident, announced an injunction ordering the HOA to restore Williams' property at its expense. Cheers erupted. 6 months later, Carter Farm was reborn. Fresh landscaping replaced scars. New saplings, donated by neighbors, bore plaques with their names. Elizabeth's Rose Garden became a community memorial, its rescued rose propagated across the space. Margaret faced felony charges, wire fraud, mail fraud, document falsification, and bribery, with up to 30 years in prison. Her trial loomed as a landmark for HOA reform. Her developer allies turned state's evidence for leniency. The state passed the Carter Rule, mandating transparency in boundary changes. On a crisp November day, Willow Creek celebrated at the farm. Potluck tables lined the restored driveway, and children played in fields spared from concrete. William, embarrassed by the spotlight, spoke briefly. "This land is our community's story, past, present, and future. We stood for honesty and respect." Robert, honored for ethical service, credited William's courage. The HOA's insurance settlement funded the Carter Farm Heritage Trust, ensuring the land remained agricultural forever. Lisa Harper's reporting won awards and sparked investigations in nearby counties, protecting other homeowners. As twilight fell, William and Robert walked the property line. William touched a young sapling where an oak once stood. "The real property line isn't on a deed," he said. "It's the line you draw when someone tries to take what's yours. Stand your ground, and family, community, and justice stand with you." A new sign gleamed at the entrance: Carter Farm, protected heritage property. The farm, like the community, had been tested and emerged stronger, its legacy secure for generations. Word count: 2,800.